that business is going to bring good into the earth, and we're going to grow with you. But at the end of the day, we want you to be successful, hire people, feed families, build our community.
Now, how can I get on the Inc. 5000? Well, that's not the goal.
Welcome to The Deep Dark, a business podcast where we ask seasoned minds to excavate their history, pulling out the best insights, the hardest moments, and yes, golden epiphanies. Somewhere in the stories and laughs, we all get a little smarter and feel a little better about our own business ventures. Remember, if it didn't hurt, it doesn't count. Your hosts are Chris Lyon and Tim Douglas at the Fidelis Creative Agency. So strap in and get ready as we plunge once again into The Deep Dark.
This episode is with Jeff Schiefelbein and Nick Besner. They are the owners of Undivided Life. Truthfully, Jeff and I go back more than a decade. I'm not sure if there's a businessman that I admire more. The two of them teaming together in this new consultancy will surely be a battle advantage for most. If I were you, I would take notes on this one and be ready to adjust your point of view. So stay awesome and listen up. It's coming at you. Well, hey, welcome. Right?
Thanks, brother.
Man, I'm so happy that you're here. We've had some real rock stars lately, but Jeff, you're going to rock it. I know you really are.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Hey, just want to tell everybody real quick, this is coming to you from Fidelis Marketing Agency. We're really thankful you're here, and also Cleaner is supporting us today. Soaps and sundries for the gentlemen. But yeah, if you get a chance, look up Cleaner, KLENR.com. But as we go, hey, let's start it. This is The Deep Dark, and man, we're going to dive on in.
We're going deep.
We're going deep. We are. You know, the focus is that we're going to talk about your business, and then we're going to figure out really what it is that through your business life has been the biggest struggle, how you conquered it. And then throughout there, I'm self-serving a little bit. I'm going to work how marketing works into you growing a business.
Sweet.
Right?
I appreciate you pouring into us, and it's always good to reconnect with you. You're one of my favorites.
Man, I appreciate it. I tell you what, you two guys are good-looking dudes. This ugly guy across the way is feeling really old right now. Just want to let you know.
Well, I am 12 or 13 years older than Nick, my business partner. And I get reminded that all the time because my jokes and my references are Gen X.
Yeah.
And it's I'm starting to just own that.
It's become a running joke.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. I told him that, so we have a podcast, and we had national sponsors before we had our first episode. And so I responded back to us and to Nick and our other podcast hosts. I said, by the end of April, our dance card is going to be full. And they said, what is he talking about? What is a dance card? So I'm okay with this.
It happens all the time here.
Yeah, but you're buff. Like, what? I don't get it. All I do is sit in the sauna and the cold plunge and carry around 6 kids. I just stay thin. I'm not buff.
Man, I'm genetically a war dwarf, man. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm 5'5". I weigh 220 pounds. It's just that's how God made it.
You're like a mythical creature.
I'm
barrel
like
chest.
Man.
Yeah.
I'm that little bitty dude that was on Lord of the Rings, right?
You're an axe carrying.
Yeah.
One,
beast.
two. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's just what it is. Yeah.
Incredible.
And what's unfortunate is my poor kids, man. They're the exact same way. Great athletes, right? But will never be tall people.
All right. Well,
It is what it is.
you find your own special place.
That's right. Yeah. Got to cornerstone something, man. Got to cornerstone something. Oh, that's too good. But back to the 80s thing.
Yeah.
Let me drop this on you. So we got a client here, and a guy walks in, and he's doing incredible, and he builds customized BMX bikes. Did you know this is a thing now?
Did not.
No. I saw a Nash skateboard the other day, and I had this flashback moment. I would love to see a custom BMX.
Oh, man. And so he's killing it. Just absolute killing it. And so we were doing some rebranding and some stuff for it. But anyway, long story short, no one here understood. They're all, Gen Zers or
Why would you
now.
pedal?
And like, what is this? What is this you're talking about?
They have motors.
Yeah.
So we got onto the interwebs, and we bought old BMX magazines.
Yeah.
I was almost crying. Oh man, just thinking about the time.
Dude, I can picture the helmets.
Oh.
Yeah, the leathers.
I'll never forget. I was like young, and we saw this performer, and it impacted me. Like, it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
It was amazing.
It was
right?
so awesome.
What is the name of that TV show, the movie with the kid on the BMX that?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
And he has to do the backflip on the trip,
Yes.
and there's all the mattresses. And I just have to say this for anybody listening. We'll come up with the name at some point. There's a scene in there where he goes into the school dance, and he's riding his BMX, and so is the girl who ended up being on Full House, the one who got in trouble for all the
That's right.
cheating.
Oh.
Yep.
And they're riding their bikes around to send me an angel.
That's right. It was so cool.
Oh, my brother.
Yeah.
I hear that, and I just want to pop a wheelie.
Oh man, we're showing our age, man, but it's there. And they laugh at me when I'm like, hey, that's a really rad idea. What are you saying, rad? What is that?
Come on, man.
What is that? Yeah.
It's got fabric. It's got depth.
It does. It does. Or we got another guy in the office will say, wow, that's a primo day. It's bitching outside. And we're like, yeah,
Yep.
we're from, all of us here, Tim, myself, and Mark, we're from the coast, right? We're from South Texas. I'm Corpus Christi, and so we can't get away from that culture that
Yeah.
we were raised in. Everybody around here thinks we're nuts. That's all right.
Love it.
I love it. So what are you doing now, Jeff?
Okay, so after 11 years of running the energy advisory firm that I helped to found and that I was an executive in as the chief culture officer,
Right.
I found myself being pulled away because I kept doing all this cool work with other businesses and other executives. Culture architecture, strategy work, executive coaching, just speaking, trying to challenge people
Right.
to be leaders, not just in the P&L of their business, but to be leaders in life. How do you take that leadership all the way into somebody's home by making them better humans? Like, that's success. I was doing so much of that I felt like I was running an energy company on the side, and it was a bit of a distraction.
It's kind of hard, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was the test kitchen. If you can do it in, deregulated energy America, if you can build
Yeah.
incredible cultures of thriving humans, you can do it anywhere. And so after years of doing all that, I had discerned my way out. I felt called to move on and to help other businesses, probably do more of the public speaking, some workshops, but was still going to figure out what that looked like over about an 8 or 9 month period to get to the end of 2022. When I walked across my very dear friend, Nick Besner, here next to me.
Howdy.
Howdy. And he comments, how's Five going? How's your business? And I said, oh, I'm going to exit before the year's over. And he said, oh, maybe we should start something together. Nick loves the company he was at, Satori Capital. He's a vice president, one of the greatest firms you could ever have for private equity. I mean, a leader in the conscious capitalism space, and they're really great at what they do. I love the people that started, the managing partner. He says, maybe we should start something together. And I was like, what? Huh? And he's like, what? Okay, let's go to lunch together. We start with a prayer. Then I said, why'd you say that the other day? And he said, blah, blah, he's going to go in. And he said, the Holy Spirit. I had to. Right. I said, cool, let's stop talking about what if we started something together. Let's just say, what are we starting together?
Nick's like, wow, I found a doer. Right? I now have a chief doer in my life. Yeah.
Starter, scaler.
Yeah.
It's a perfect,
Absolutely.
Business marriage, if you will.
Sure.
The best decision to make is yes.
Problem with Jeff is he's a visionary and an integrator, right? So as you're looking at that, you got to get ready for both.
Oh yeah, it's pretty fast. But what's funny? I've never found anybody who keeps up with me and then makes me sit there and say, wow, how did you get all that done so quickly? And it's because I think if you actually get out of your head and quit trying to control everything, and our business is not a Christian nonprofit business, but our relationship with Christ for each one of us informs who we are as a business leader and what we're trying to achieve and impact.
Yeah.
So if you actually tune into the Holy Spirit, and if you know how to have a deep prayer life, how you prioritize God above spouse, spouse above kids, kids above all else. He's got 2, I got 6 kids. We each have 1 wife.
You better catch up.
Different women.
I've got time.
This is getting very fascinating here. But anyways, long story short, you end up just saying, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do next. I feel called into this. I feel called into this. So we move quickly. Your question was, what are we doing? We launched a company called Undivided Life.
Okay.
Undivided Life to me is a mindset. It's an operating system. It is a calling to actually live by whatever those priorities are, or the purpose that you have in your life. If you can live that every day, you're living an undivided life, even in podcasting, marketing, business launching, whatever it is your world is, janitors. I don't care what you're doing. And so we took the fact that we're equally yoked in life stage, in our faith and everything, but we're different, and our Venn diagrams overlap a little bit in our abilities, right? You have a strategy, finance, M&A expert in Nick who knows culture. You have a culture expert who knows culture architecture and coaching, who understands M&A and strategy, in me. You put them together, really strategy and culture to us are the same thing. They're integrated, but you have to speak to people differently. You have to position it differently. So let's just start consulting strategy and culture. Like, that's the banner. Clients started calling, so we're already working with a handful of really great clients. And it's a little mixture of, like, Nick might be the lead, I might be the lead, but it takes both of us. Because we can't help everybody on day one, and we're not going to hire employees. We're 3 months old, by the way, when we're filming this podcast.
Ancient.
Oh, yeah. So we said, let's do online courses so that people have access to this information if they don't have access to us. Built out a studio. We've launched 2 of the 5 already, and they're going really well. we said, okay, if we have a studio, let's build out a podcast and get more equipment in here. And what's crazy is I've been on Catholic Radio Live for 6 years. I've had a co-host for 2 years. We have a blast on air talking about things that matter. And we basically extrapolated that concept into now that co-host, his name's Paul Kolker, me, Nick Besner. We launched a podcast called the Beatidudes, and it's about growing an authentic fraternity.
It's a great name, man.
Thank you, brother.
Great
And
name.
you got to catch the dudes. If people miss the dudes, it doesn't sound so funny, but it's a
Yeah.
religiously funny podcast rooted in the humor and holiness of life.
We need more humor.
Amen. And you need, it's actually a pathway to holiness, because when you have humor, you create intrigue and relationship, and you can walk with somebody. Without humor, some people are so turned off by matters of the church or faith,
Right.
you can't get them to the conversation. So I can stop there and act like that's all we're doing, but it's not.
It's huge, but
Yeah.
you know, it's funny you say that, because I'm thinking as we go through here, there seems to be this pattern that's emerging. And I've talked to a lot of different companies through this podcast, and you know, the work that we do in marketing and everything else. And so here's kind of what it's come to, is that there is a big hunger in the world to be able to run a business in a system, right? So somewhere along the line, as businesses are either passed down or purchased, there is a loss in how do I actually run this thing.
Yeah.
Right? This doesn't happen on its own. And then inevitably what happens is the stress ensues as that new owner or the person who's in charge is staying up at night going, wow, I'm lost. Yeah. Faith is found many times in that spot when you haven't slept. And so then the two start to converge. But then what happens from there is in time, as we see companies start to turn revenue, they have figured out, wait a second, I'm putting money in the bank. A lot of it's going to taxes. I haven't figured out how to turn this profit that I'm now seeing into actual long-term strength of this company. What, you know, how do I scale, or how do I invest, or how do I? And so it seems that you're hitting a niche to me.
Oh,
It's there. It's visible to me.
Well, I'd love, Nick, just to reflect for a second on what you were seeing in your role at Satori Capital. How many of these family businesses, very profitable, had no opportunity to, are probably going to fail if there's not an answer to that afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, you can see, I mean, I've seen and looked at hundreds of different businesses, generally all founder-owned, you know, going from often startup to 40, 50, or million or more top line within the span of a generation, right? Just the founder themselves. And then is it the second generation? Do you trust it to your employees? Like, what does that transition actually look like, and who's the right next, if you want to call it like steward of this business, right? Nothing is ours, it's just for this time that we're stewarding it.
Yeah.
And so that was really the approach we took at Satori. It was really like, we may or may not be the right partner, but you need to do the work as a seller to know who that right partner is.
Right.
And so I always like to give a shout out. Sonny Vanderbeck co-founded Satori, and he wrote a book because he had this experience.
What's the book?
It's called Selling Without Selling Out.
Okay.
How to Sell Your Business Without Selling Your Soul.
Gotcha.
And this is drawing on Sonny's, decades of entrepreneurship, and then as a private equity founder and someone who works with founders on a daily basis, he had these kind of terrible experiences, honestly, with private equity, his first go around. And that led to the genesis of Satori. It was like, let's do anything but that.
Right.
Right. There has to be
There
has to be a demand out there for people who are like-minded and won't destroy what's been built.
Absolutely.
And so that's Satori's whole thing is
That's a big deal.
We're going to partner with founders. We're not going to come in and replace the CEO. You know your business better than we ever will, but we have the skills and experience to take you from this scrambling world that you're living in into the scaling world of the next
And it's
phase.
that whole PE world can be devastating when you get in there at first. It depends upon who you're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
I've been through it where the first question out the bat was, who's your CFO and what's their background?
Oh yeah.
Right. That was the very first. That was the very first.
You got to
question.
hire a new one.
You got to hire a new one. By the way, you like the person that's been there for a very long time. And then, the next question as it starts to go through is, what's your exit strategy? And that's now, right? Well, hey, wait a second. I don't know. What if we're a legacy business, right? Yeah. What does that look like? Maybe we want to push this 5 generations out. But, that long-term thinking, wow.
Brother, when I come down here and do Startup Aggie Land work or anything in the Center for Entrepreneurship, I get frustrated by this focus on the angel investor and go get the capital. You are not an entrepreneur because of money.
Right.
Money is an output of you successfully achieving your mission, your passion, becoming an expert in things. But when it's all about money, it's a very short road of happiness because it is so shallow that you end up in this place where somebody hijacked the thing that you loved, that you put yourself into. You no longer have control or a meaningful impact if you're even involved at all. So let's stop pushing, let's get the big angel investor. And I do want to go back to one thing. This concept of systems, we all keep recreating it, right? EOS is a cool system. It's just a recreation of something else.
EOS,
Conscious capitalism is an incredible system of stakeholder mentality, of higher purpose and conscious cultures. That's awesome. As you keep breaking this down, I don't mind that we repaint it. I don't mind that we rename it. There's a million leadership books out there. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go back to what drives us. Jesus taught us everything we need to know in the gospel about how human beings flourish and thrive, how we give grace and love to people, and how people should be treated. And there's now systems.
I'm with you.
You look at Barry Waymiller and the folks that Bob Chapman leads at his company, and the book Everybody Matters is the one I'm always plugging. Now you're talking about a system that goes beyond just a conscious culture of how we operate in the workplace. It's recognizing that every human being is somebody else's precious son or daughter.
Right.
Now, okay, if we act like that.
Well, that's a whole different dynamic, right?
Yeah. I want to be 70 years old and talk about that impact, not the EBITDA growth of 2023. Like, that's an outcome, not a goal.
True. And it's very cold. One thing little caveat I want to give to you is Alex Caesar. He was on my podcast the other day. He was at A&M. He was when Coach Sumlin was here, he was the defensive captain.
Okay.
If you haven't met Alex Caesar, you and him are
Let's
gonna
do it.
I just want to give that to you because I feel like I've done the podcast twice now. He's doing the exact same thing. But as you're going, he's not a competitor of yours per se, but he's, man,
I don't know what
tell you.
competitor means, Chris.
Exactly.
This
Good.
pie is gigantic. I play with abundance. We know that there's more people that need help than 1,000 undivided lives could possibly help.
You know, and we're finding that more and more, and that's really what's driving our business.
Now let's change the conversation because there should actually be 1,000 people just like us in Irving, Texas, for crying out loud. That's how badly this is needed. So,
you know, at one point in time, and I know I'm rabbit trailing again, it seemed like when I was young, a lot of this stuff happened organically through the church, person to person, as they helped each other, right? It's just grown to a certain extent, and I think that somehow along the line we lost something, not just the relationship, but the know-how wasn't passed down exactly the right way either, and that's where you really start to play.
Well, you know, I've led big organizations. I've consulted for all types of organizations. We're already working with a lot of different types of organizations. People to be helped, to be cared for, to be grown in their ability within that organization don't need to have any of the same faith beliefs that I do. But it is true that I love Jesus and I love others for the sake of Jesus. So therefore, that's what informs this drive.
Right.
But that's in no way a judgment that somebody else has a completely different worldview, a completely different set of priorities. We still want them to thrive. We want their organization to have impact. We want business to help solve the world's problems. There you go.
Well, many times you're going to find the value set, even if the focus is the value set is still there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Truth at the end of the day comes from the same place.
It does, right? Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it does. You know, we could get into the Tao with that one. So when y'all started this, Nick, tell me, who was the biggest impact on your business life? Where did that come from?
It's actually somebody that we just met with, General Van Alstyne here.
Was it?
Here at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I came from a small town, more cows than people.
What town's that?
It's Lindsay, Texas.
Lindsay, Texas. Okay.
And I'd never heard the words investment banking put together, much less that it was a job or you could go do that after graduation. And in his class, the fellows leadership class,
Right.
I took a step back, and one of the things we studied is Death of a Salesman.
Yes.
And I love that book because, you know, the tragedy is living someone else's dream for you rather than discovering what your own dream and calling is. Right. And so that sort of launched me on this whole journey to where, you know, I've heard, oh, wow, you left private equity VP position. People don't do that. That must have been a really hard decision. Maybe for somebody else, but it was what I was called to do, right? This is where I am supposed to be. And so just like going back to my very roots, even as a junior in college and in that class, like General Van Alstyne is my business hero.
Yeah, he is that dude's a force of nature. There's no doubt. He is a force of nature. Yeah, we all love him. He's done a great job for many of us.
Today was my first day to ever meet him, but I got to watch the way that he and Nick were embracing in that mentor-mentee relationship, and to see his continually coming back to Nick, what are other ways that I can be of service to you? This man's important, he's busy, and he pours into other people. So it was really neat to be able to experience that this morning.
It is. It makes all the difference, right? But especially if you can emulate that in your business.
Yeah, and I think just that point about pouring into others and our discussion on profit, like one of the things I've always said, or we've always said, is profit is a lagging indicator. It's a measure of value created for others first, right? Like do that, pour into other people, and that'll take care of itself.
Yep.
That's right. It's a lost art. We talk about it all the time here. Because you're dealing with businesses, and when you're dealing with businesses, for some reason, that seems to be not only the number one indicator. The number two indicator is growth, percentage of growth, with or without profit. And that one we always look at. We kind of have that moment there as well, going, well, if you're just looking to grow, then what's your eventual outcome? Well, we were going to sell. We want to sell within a couple of years.
Yeah.
We're probably not your firm.
Yep.
Probably not where we want a long-term partner who wants good into the earth, and we're going to grow with you, but at the end of the day, we want you to be successful, hire people, feed families, build our community.
Now, how can I get on the Inc. 5000? Well, that's not the goal.
Right.
That's an outcome,
It's an outcome.
of something you did right. And I'd say the same thing about any of those accolades or skins on the wall, that if you actually get down to why, then you can say, good for you, we can't help you.
Right. We had this conversation on a recent podcast where the guy says, well, actually it was Derek with Horizon. He said, I don't want just a lot of clients. I want the right clients. My margins get bigger if I have the right clients, when we have the same values and we're working together and things get better. Yeah.
Think about this from what is your why? What's the driving purpose? I love innovation. I love human impact. And we love to see human flourishing within an organization. It's part of the reason why one of Nick's courses is demystifying business buying, how to buy your first business. Because for some people, that is their step into an undivided life. And that's very nuts and bolts about kind of the M&A and due diligence that you would go through. So is that about this human thriving and flourishing? Absolutely. So then you combine that with a class about creating a culture of coaching, or an entire culture architecture. Like, we're trying to get people to this place. So when I think about growth, or when I think about revenue, I expect and will push for Undivided Life and our holding company, that's a whole nother branch, to grow tremendously. But it's not because I care about size. It's not even because I care about money. It's because God gave us a unique set of gifts. We fit together like puzzle pieces, and we can't wait to add to that staff of other puzzle pieces, that we're called to multiply the talents we were given and not to bury them. If the result is that we have more money and we're on some list for fast growing, that is, to your point, a lagging indicator. The purpose is human impact. And yes, don't do it in an unprofitable way, but we've been doing this for long enough that it's almost intuition that causes us to not take on a bad project.
Yeah, well, it does take quite a bit of road time experience as well to be able to see which product. And some of those, you're talking about looking at their P&L and looking at what their income is and all that other, as you start to look at it. But there's something in there also that just tells you, hey, this is the place.
Well, that wisdom thing. Have you ever seen the book Halftime, From Profit to Purpose? So I'm at the halftime of my career. I'm 23 and a half years into, and I have 23 and a half years ahead of me, assuming a normal retirement schedule. Nick's a little behind because he's a young buck. But the halftime mentality, this is some Christian author, is all that wisdom you got from the road time, from getting beat up, from doing it wrong, from thinking you got it right, and then in the rearview mirror realizing you messed up relationships because you got it so right. When you look at that point, we should all have a maturation moment of shifting into purpose.
Right.
And purpose usually leads to more profit. So it's not like an absence of profit or a running away from it. It's just that that's not the target.
No, what the hell am I doing? Basically ask yourself that. Throw in the expletive because you'll actually probably learn something. But what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? What is the ultimate goal here?
Chris, how many times do you sit around with somebody who's retired, who's nearing the end of their life and they tell you about which deals they lost and which ones they won and how many times they were in the president's club of their stupid sale. Like, no.
No.
People talk about who they loved, what it was like to be around their kids or grandkids, how they were part of some civic charitable thing that they did, how much they love sunsets or what. They never talk about some business metric.
It's eulogy virtues instead of resume virtues.
I love that.
That's what Brian Johnson says.
Eulogy
is
versus.
awesome.
I have one of my best friend in life. His father was absolutely, man. He cast a shadow on all of us, right? He cast a shadow on me too. And it's funny because when the whole family's together, this has always gotten to me. The brothers and sisters will banter and they'll be like, "You are OR. You are your dad." Oh, and then the next breath, "Oh, you are your dad." But by the way, all of them are beautiful and just incredibly exceptional, in everything they do in life. And I've always thought, well, that was that shadow that was cast. So you can make fun of it, but at the end, you're pretty darn good, right? In everything you've done. And you've given back, and they're loving people. And I always think, well, that's really where it comes to. Yeah, did he do really well in life? He did. You wouldn't have known it.
And you look at like the formation of people when people are getting again towards the later parts of their career, close to retirement, and they're bragging about their boat. Spend a little bit more time and dig in and see how happy that person actually is. Right. Like the joy, not just laughter and all that. I mean joy that is of a peaceful nature regardless of the external forces of their life. Yeah. They likely don't have it. And the more you chase that thing and don't go to purpose, the less likely I think you're going to have actual joy in your life.
Mm-hmm. There's one of the guys that's here in the office. We had this conversation yesterday about where that peace beyond understanding comes from. And when you finally get there, man, you're almost bulletproof, right? It's kind of different and to be an entrepreneur and to be doing the things that you have to do to make a living today. If you find that spot, bingo.
Okay, the question: what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Right? It's like such a great question to put
That's
out there,
right.
and people start getting pretty wild. You might hear somebody say, I would change the foster care system. Cool, I would do this, I would do this. I actually believe, and I don't mean this in the worldly sense, I can't fail. Like there's literally zero things I could fail at because it's not about whether or not that thing works or not. Am I being formed? Am I doing work that's rightly ordered? Am I doing it to the best of my ability? And am I doing all of it without neglecting the priorities of God, wife, kids? Mm-hmm. Somebody said, what's next? Like, where are you going? Brother, I woke up today. So I'm doing this today,
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to be here. And by God, I'll put everything I got into this and my kids. And I'm so grateful to be with my friend Chris today and for y'all to be able to connect. But you can't lose. There's no losing in this. No. So play like you can't lose.
When you finally get away from what's next and you live in the here and now, that's true. Yeah. You got to be there. Yeah. You got to be there. I don't know. So I want to tell you, I don't believe in luck. All right? So I believe that
Does it make you mad when people say you're lucky?
When they say I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I believe in focused timing, right? So I'm focused in what I'm doing and I have really good timing. If I can put those things together, which in time you start seeing those, right? You start going, well, the reason that I'm just using this, I don't know. But the reason why I'm across from Nick is that Nick may need me in a couple years. So I'm gonna bolster this relationship so he knows that he's going to be all right, right? And I'm going to start that today because I'm seeing A and B, these 2 points, and later on this is going to happen. What has been that moment for you throughout your career, both of you, Nick and Jeff? What's been that moment where you go, okay, I've put the dots together and I know where we're going and there's a bigger vision for me here? Has there been a moment for that?
I'm happy to go first.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this in really general terms, but I don't mean it as big as it's going to sound. I've been very powerful. I've been very famous. I've been very rich. I've been a womanizer. I'm just telling you, like I've tried all it. Luckily, I've never got into drugs, but I'm saying like I've tried everything.
Still time.
I've tried everything like in a big way. And none of it satisfied in any way. And like a drug, the immediate satisfaction could never be repeated. I don't care. Right. Get the biggest check. I was on MTV for crying out loud when I was in college. Like I was well known in a lot of places. I danced off Broadway. I have all these crazy stories. Every time I went into prayer, retreat, a pilgrimage, true community, true authentic friendship, it satisfied, and it was deep, and I wanted to go deeper. And so I came to a conclusion through the practical application of wisdom through experience. That stuff's never going to satisfy me, but the other stuff that's real will. And I'm grateful that I get to do it. And so therefore, what does that mean for other people? What is their version of that? And how can I create organizations where the human being working there, we might be doing energy advisory work, but they are bolstered in a way that the working mother who has a miscarriage feels loved and supported at work. Not that they have to hide it. Where the working mother who gets pregnant might even get a promotion during their maternity leave. Where the working father doesn't feel weird for taking more than 2 days off for a new baby and maybe takes a month.
I've suffered from
Like,
that, yeah.
oh yeah, every man I know has.
Yeah.
And people don't talk about that because it's a taboo one. But this whole concept of, I want you to be a more fulfilled, better part of your family and society and whatever you're involved in, whatever you care about, because this company exists. And if we do that, let's go back to the lagging indicators. We'll have all the other stuff. The business metrics are going to be fine.
Right.
But if I were to make that about notoriety, power, money, whatever, brother, it's going to be a sad day because you're never going to be
fleeting.
satisfied.
It's
Yep.
fleeting.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. In my house, we call those the details of life, right? Success, pleasure, social life, loved ones,
Sure.
friends, status symbols. They
They're part of
all.
it. Yeah, they don't
they're all
define
fleeting.
you.
Nope.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're part of it.
Storylines.
Yeah.
There you go. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, it's funny. Luck is a funny word, right? People associate different things with it. It means something to everyone else. And as a professional investor and someone who's tried to study some of the greats, Warren Buffett always says, like, you're in America, like, you're lucky. You're not gonna,
Right.
It already happened.
Right.
You're not gonna put your name back in the hat of, like, where could I be born, right?
Right.
Like, but we get so focused, I think, and drilled into, like, my world and who I'm competing with and who are my peers and am I ahead or behind and what does that mean, and like zoom out a little bit, I think is a good good lesson. And also, you're not gonna get lucky if you're just sitting on the couch watching Netflix.
Bam.
Like,
Yeah.
you got to increase that surface area for luck to hit you.
Did you?
Right?
This is a number of years ago. The CEO or president, whatever, of Goldman Sachs. They asked him. I guess the markets weren't doing well, and they said, "Hey, so if you lose your job tomorrow, what are you going to do?" And he smiled and he said, "There's a BMW dealership down the street. I'm going to go sell cars." He goes, "Because it's the best business ever." He said, "People are walking through the door. You can make a relationship. They can walk out happy, and you're going to make money, and you don't have to go and look for them anywhere, right? They're coming through the door." And he's like, "I'll go sell cars tomorrow and probably make more money."
Yeah.
Just that viewpoint in life,
Yeah.
But that his role didn't define him at all.
Not a bit.
Yeah, just his.
Yep.
Yeah. So where
Yeah.
have I been lucky? I mean, starts from the beginning and just everywhere along the way, just feel blessed. So
Yeah.
no one moment or anything like that. Just a continual, like, I think just leaning into, like, again, what am I called to do? What am I called to be? Like,
Right.
I think spending time there feels like even just having that as a framework.
Well, and connection, right? We were talking about this earlier. Like, I've always gone out of my way to meet a speaker when they're done, to get to know a professor. If I read a book and I like it, I try to get in touch with the author, but I can't tell you why. I just know that I want connection. And in doing that, people will be like, "Oh, Jeff's so lucky. He knows this, he got this, he had this." And I'm like, no, I walked up in a moment of vulnerability and shook somebody's hand, and I fumbled through my words, and now I have a relationship. That's not luck. That's showing up.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
something.
No bus bench there, right? Not
That's
waiting
right.
for it to come. It's funny, I asked that question because, and I've gotten it back a couple times in this podcast where people go, "Well, I had a chance of a lifetime." And then, through conversation, I can always ask them, say, "So did that chance of lifetime, did you get another chance of a lifetime?" Yeah. I had a person the other day said, "Yeah, I get one about every quarter, another chance of a lifetime." And I'm like, isn't it amazing, if you pass on one, how that other shows up, because it's really sets and reps, right? It's sets and reps. It's making sure that you're engaged. But on the other side, there's just a whole lot of faith, man. You just got to keep moving.
I remember when Five was winning every award. I was on stages speaking. I was doing all this cool stuff at the old energy company that I was at. And somebody said, was asking me a question, and I said, "Oh, if my partners voted me off the island today, nothing in my life changes. Like literally nothing, because nothing about me is defined by being the founder of something or being whatever bank account, like nothing." And they were really baffled by it. And it was less than a year later that I exited, and they're like, "Oh, you meant that." And I love those guys.
Sure.
I was on the phone with a dude when I pulled up in your parking lot today from 5, just loving him and enjoying connecting. And he said, "I got somebody for you and Nick to meet in the M&A world." Great. Cool. I want to know whoever you know. Sounds awesome.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'll be interested to know who that is. But that was a great businessman, or is a great business. It is people are going to know a lot about it, but a lot of that has to do with you following the same methodology that we're talking about now.
And you know what? It's the same playbook. I started carpool at Texas A&M University. Same playbook. I had to learn that one the hard way because I had to get my butt kicked.
Right.
Figuring out what does it mean to truly empower other people? What does it mean to have a stakeholder mentality? By the grace of God, I got way more right than I got wrong, so that thing's still here 24 years later.
Yeah.
But the playbook of shared experience and the way that you give people true responsibility and treat them as fully formed adults, all that stuff plays out in every single organization. I could care less the tax status, the size, public, private. People are people.
You know, you and I have a lot in common working with businesses, as we have, in sort of the same way. When one of the things that I found through all of that, and you kind of keyed off in 5 and other places, is I keep preaching this over and over, I really don't care how somebody's wired. I only care about how you behave, right? So when I'm building a culture or a business, that's the first place I start, is looking at those behaviors. Because like you talk about, standing up, shaking a hand, making sure that you're helping people out. The other thing that I know that, and Nick, I'm sure that you're doing the same thing, but you're pretty big in the philanthropic world as well. There's a lot of that.
Big too.
Yeah. What's your new philanthropic endeavor you got going now?
New? I got so many right now. All right, this is right now I'm the president of my kids' school board. It's pre-K 3 through 12. By the grace of God, we just paid off over a $3 million debt and raised a few $1 million of investment income, and our enrollment is skyrocketing. There's something beautiful happening in that school. I have 4 of my 6 kids there. I'm the president of the Catholic Music Initiative, which is helping to create mass music for Catholics that is reverent, prayerful, and accessible to anybody of their talent, of various talent levels. And I'm a trustee in the Catholic Foundation in Dallas, a very huge philanthropic organization. But in addition to that, we do a lot of pro bono consulting for organizations we care about. We both contribute to a lot of them. I'm the honorary chairperson with my wife for a big event for Birth Choice Dallas coming up. Like, it's kind of like we get to touch a little bit of everything. And some of those people have now become clients. And that wasn't the intent. We were just helping.
Amazing how that works, right?
We were donating to them.
Yeah.
And now we're getting revenue. And I'm like, wait.
This is so circular.
What's the tax status of this? You pay me, I pay you. I don't get it. So it's a lot of that. And, I'll let Nick speak, but we're also both involved in our parish. St. Anne in Coppell is a thriving parish with tons and tons of families. Yeah. And we're both involved in different apostolates and ministries there.
Yeah, all those things. And if you're listening to this and in Dallas or know an entrepreneur in Dallas, I used to be an associate board member at the Dallas Entrepreneur Center. It was through COVID, so it was a challenging time. But that's a really strong organization for startups, people that want mentorship, resources, and things like that. That's something I've been plugged into in the past.
That's awesome. I've worked in a number of incubators and accelerators, and wow, it's just it's a gift for a lot of people to have somebody help point them direction and get those resources. It's a tough world out there, but this, and I say younger generation because everybody seems to be younger than me today. They lend themselves to entrepreneurism, especially if you can point them the right direction. Right? They figured it works well, especially for my children. Yeah. So as you're looking forward, because I know that you've probably had enough time to dream now, starting this business 90 days ago, taking it day by day, but what would you like it to turn into? How big, how bad,
Sure.
how tough?
I'll take this on. So I told you that there's the consulting arm that has the classes, the podcast.
Right.
There's also the holding company. The holding company is set to launch brands, to invest in projects, and to own real estate. And so I think of this as a conglomeration over time where we are almost completely removed from what is the service or the brand or the product. We are actually about how do we take this playbook, I'll call it the Undivided Life operating system, and impact people's lives, impact organizations, impact communities, and help solve problems, whether they're problems of a local need in College Station or they're problems on a much larger scale that are of any nature, right? One of the things we invested in is a film that speaks to both of us in a really big way. Another thing that we're launching right now is a series of social saunas and cold plunges called Drip. And we've actually been scouting locations here in town in College Station because you're going from a decade of boutique fitness turns into a decade of boutique wellness. And to add the social component of it, it actually becomes part of the community building that we want.
We just had a big cold bath here the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we did. So one of the companies that's in our holding company here, Cleaner, man, he's a go-getter, right?
Yeah.
You're going to love him.
Sweet.
I'm going to introduce you to him in a minute. Y'all have a lot in common. But, he's been doing different things to kind of, bring attention to himself and the product. It was funny. Outside here, just one cold bath after another, and you had a bunch of people that it's a thing now, though, right? It's a thing.
That's how we start our Monday mornings. Instead of meeting on Zoom or in person, we go sauna cold plunge.
There you go.
No, so I think the question, though, becomes that I want to, find a way for Nick and I to build a business that has its own employees and infrastructure to impact the most amount of employees and other infrastructures so that we can make business human.
Early on when we met, Jeff, I'm going to put this in a way. So tell me if I'm off the mark. I don't mean to put it in the wrong way, but you said that one of your keys to success is you were trying to duplicate your did you say yourself or your system? Something like that. Early we talked about it. I said, so how is it that you're able to do all that you do, right?
I know what you're saying. I think you're saying it pretty close to the way I would say it. It's I joke all the time that one of the biggest keys and one of the most fundamental pieces of the way that we operate is to give true agency to people, and that means I'm not just going to tell you what we need done and how we need it done. I'm just going to say, here's the goal.
Right.
Chris, you own this. You can choose to bring in resources. I could be a resource for you. I'm not going to look over your shoulder. I'm not going to tell you what you're doing wrong. I'm not even going to, when you have a result, it might be better than mine would have been. It might be worse. It might completely fail and miss the mark. Every one of those is important to us. In fact, the failures are more important because they're formative. It's a place for learning and growth. And I'm going to celebrate that. So it's funny, I get credit for doing a lot more than I actually do. I'm busy, and I have my hands on a lot of stuff.
Sure.
But because I give true responsibility to people I manage a lot of people from the boards that I'm on. We get to touch a lot of different businesses here. I've owned various businesses. I still own parts of 5. And so when it's all said and done, if I give you true agency and I give you the true responsibility and I help you to own whatever the outcome is, it's my outcome too. I'm not going to point a finger and say, Chris missed it. Say, we came up short of what we expected. Drop the emotion.
Right.
Now all of a sudden, you're being formed. All these other people are being formed, and we can grow.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'll jump in there. And as I left Satori and reflected on the 7 years that I was there, right? Like, what were some of the high points? And it was probably sometime in year 2. So I'd been there a year, maybe a little bit more. And so I'm 25, 26 years old at the time. And they're like, okay, great. We're probably going to make this investment. So go by yourself, fly to Boston, sit in the room with the CFO of this company for 3 days and build their model.
Right.
Right. And I had enough experience, but it was also like very nerve-wracking of this has to be right. And looking back, it was like one of the high points because I went and they gave me that agency to do that, and I crushed it. And then they saw what I was capable of, and I saw what I was capable of, and it just leveled up me, our team, like everything got better.
Yeah.
Fundamentally different if somebody would have been there telling you what to do.
100%.
And you would have felt constrained in it. I think the words that I've used before too is make yourself replaceable. In this situation, whoever could have done or would have normally done that made themselves replaceable by giving him the keys. And so that person could be on vacation or didn't even have
That's
to
the
exist
key,
in that
right
organization, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And my proof to this is so funny. When I announced that I was leaving 5, co-founder, chief culture officer, there was a meeting and somebody panicked and said, how many customers are we going to lose? I said, 0. I promise you that because I'm not leaving in a fight. Then they said, how are we going to do everything you do? And I said, tell me what you think I do here.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is an executive, and they said, well, you're the heartbeat. And I said, you all have heartbeats. You cheerlead? I said, you know how to cheerlead. And they said, what about onboarding? I go, when's the last time you think I onboarded somebody? And they were like, and I was like, brother, I've been replaceable here for many, many years,
Right.
which made me valuable. It made me additional. It made me help you and not just be a cog that must exist in order for the rest of the machine to turn.
There you go. That's the deep dark right there, man. So, and what I mean by that is if a business owner, if a leader can figure that out, if they can figure out exactly what you just said, then you can start to move.
I went on a 3-week vacation 2 summers ago. I've never been on a 3-week vacation in my life. I took the kids hiking in 4 different parts of Colorado. And people were like, is this going to be hard for you? And I said, no, we actually even dropped social media before we left so that we wouldn't have to post anything. So it was like the most freeing thing. And I came back, you know what I had? Like 3 questions that people had just because they wanted to know certain things. My opinion.
Life went on.
Yeah, it's pretty neat, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
You're really important, but you're not.
But you're not. Yeah.
You're really small, and you matter a lot.
Days past, people used to say that if the president's replaceable, so are you, right? And it's true.
It's good.
Yeah,
Really
it's a true
If you're
thing.
not replaceable, you're a liability, brother.
That's right. That's a
Now I got to
problem.
worry about you. Now I got to start building mechanisms around you.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're in a contentious relationship because you have some sort of leverage.
That's right.
That's not powerful.
Oh,
That's
man,
toxic.
I've been in businesses where I have looked at a person that I know is irreplaceable in that business,
Yep.
and I've said, "Tell me what she does."
Yep.
We don't know, but I need to know what she does and how she does it because right now the way that this works is you don't have a business, you have a rock star
Yep.
that's driving this
Yep.
whole thing, and that goes away, y'all go away.
And through coaching, if you try
Yeah.
to extract what that person knows, and they won't meet you there, they won't start to get there, then you have to go into a quiet crisis mode, which is we have got to start building systems and recruiting because we cannot have this rock star sitting here
Absolutely.
refusing to share.
And let me give you the investor's perspective on that.
Mm-hmm.
From private equity can sniff that out in about
Right.
one conversation.
Right.
So if you're the person that's plugging every hole in the dike,
Mm-hmm.
you're not investable, right?
Right.
If you want to sell your business, you need to be replaceable.
Yeah.
It's this weird dichotomy. I've seen it too many times where it's a single point of failure,
Mm-hmm.
and anybody who's a institutional investor just can't take that
No
risk.
Right. I was dealing with one business not too long ago where I could see the writing on the wall, and this wasn't a PE thing. This was, and they're doing a lot of culture and leadership work for them. And I understood where they was going. I don't ever want to become a de facto manager, right? That's the main key that if you're working in a business, don't be a de facto manager if you're coming in as a consultant. But as I was in there, the person that was in charge was the rock star and had been there for a very long time. Problem was mid-60s, right? I hate to say it. We all know that that's a problem.
Well, it doesn't last forever.
Doesn't last forever, ready to go.
And nothing's guaranteed.
And so as we started working with that business, there came one day at the table when I said, hey, this young lady over here is going to be the new CEO. I don't want a de facto management. We had to put it out there. And why? Well, because she's the smartest person in the room, but she also has made a team around her, so she doesn't have to be the smartest person in the room.
Yes.
And you're 65, and by the way, everybody here, we have to have you, right? So, looking at that, but it sounds like y'all have figured that out already.
We're trying.
As you're growing it. Yeah.
But the good thing about waking up today is we're going to challenge ourselves to grow deeper. We're going to challenge ourselves for where are we out of balance. We're going to challenge ourselves for where does a lesson we've learned in our past apply to one of our clients. So I won't echo we figured it out. I'll say we're figuring it out.
Right.
This is an action.
That's right.
Yeah. I can't wait to see where that goes, though.
Amen.
I can't wait to see where that goes.
Me too. People
Yeah.
say, who's
Same.
your ideal client? We say, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we've that's funny because here at Fidelis we've worked through that for a number of reasons. It's funny how emotionally somebody can get tied to their brand,
Mm-hmm.
right? We figured out that many times that client that is showing that emotions to a certain when it gets to be our relationship doesn't necessarily need to be business. It needs to
right.
be something else at that
That's
point in time.
I get that completely.
Yeah. You were pretty tied to 5, man, for sure.
Yeah, and you know what's fun? I loved being challenged. I think about from the brand perspective. And then every time we went through that exercise, what we kept finding was how cool it was to have a brand that was so distinct
Right.
that a number was the name of the company. And so the memory recall for anybody in our space, that everybody else sounds like blah, blah, blah energy consultant.
Right.
And then you have 5, and people say 5 what? You say just 5. And now you got it. They will never forget
I remember
5.
that. Yeah.
And so when I'd have people, well, the URL doesn't make any sense. I'd say, listen, I'm on the front lines of selling and recruiting.
Uh-huh.
I don't have to explain who we are twice, because nobody ever forgets that we started a company based on culture first, capability second, and we're growing like crazy. And they see the number, they see the name.
Right.
That was such a beautiful place to be very courageous.
Mm-hmm.
I had some business partners that weren't ready to go out on that limb, but were brave enough to trust that it might work. And it certainly did.
And it certainly did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Parting wisdom. Give me some wisdom, man. You've already given me a lot, but I know you have a lot in there. I've got 2 questions. Parting wisdom, but before that, you had a post on LinkedIn the other day. And I'm not sure whether you were in the White House or where that was that you were that day, but man, it looked really official.
I wonder which post this was. Do you know what the topic was?
It's got to be National Men's Conference the night before at that house.
Oh, was I being interviewed on
You were
stage?
being interviewed.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
so this is really special. And a funny story about just confidence and brand building. So there was a National Men's Conference in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
They had already booked all the speakers, including Jonathan Rumi from The Chosen, plays Jesus, and the first ever U.S. visit of the Archduke of Austria.
Okay.
And I'm walking around with the promoter and the designer of this whole conference months ago, and people are walking up to me and thanking me for different talks that I had given over the past couple of years. And he said, you do this on the side, and this is the way people are acting around you? And I said, it's a gift and a calling, but I'm called to do it. He said, man, I wish I would have got you on stage at the National Men's Conference. And my next thing was, and this is Holy Spirit, it's not too late. He goes, what? And I said, I only need 10 minutes. He goes, 10 minutes, what would you do? And I said, I would challenge the men. I would challenge them in a way that they could not be the same person after I'm done talking, period. And he said, go on. So I told him the challenge, and he goes, hold on. Gets out his phone, adds me to the schedule.
Wow.
And so I call Nick. I'm like, I think I just got his booked for a trip.
Being a guy that's led big leadership, symposiums, I'm going to tell you that's not easy to do.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. And then what's wild is here I am the night before. They bring in a big TV crew for this Catholic show called The Doctor Is In. It's Dr. Ray Garundi. He's just got it's syndicated in 160 countries. This guy interviews people. And they are doing like a cutaway part for 5 upcoming shows called Man to Man. It's Dr. Ray Garundi talking to us about leading men for this leadership conference. The center for the Cincinnati Bengals, the Archduke, Jonathan Rumi, me, and the guy who started the whole program. And so here I was being interviewed by a guy I've actually listened to off and on and read a bunch of his books over the last 10 years in a really cool, like private home gathering in this exquisite part of Cincinnati.
That was pretty neat.
Mansion.
Oh,
Yes.
it was neat. And on the front row is a group of Dominican sisters from Nashville. And the holiness and the peace to have the lights and the heat and the stage and the makeup artists. And here I am just whispering before the show gets started with these beautiful souls. And I felt so at ease that it didn't even feel like being on a TV program. But
Yeah.
Thanks for asking about that. That
Yeah.
was fun.
It was
That was a long answer, but the whole thing has been so spirit-led, and those men were very challenged.
Well, I want to know what you said about that. That's one of our big things here. But I tell you, but you looked at it and I thought, did he get a PR guy to put him on Fox News or something? I was like, who's Jeff's PR guy, man? I got to meet this PR guy.
Pretty good PR guy.
Yeah, pretty good PR guy.
Yeah.
Goes by Jeff.
Yeah.
It goes by Jeff.
Do you know, I'll tell you something that I think is really interesting about the challenge. I'm not going to give you the final conclusion of it, but I want to say a statement, and it should just resonate with anybody. Man, woman, young, old. I love my family. I would blank for them. And if you really start going through that process and picturing them in joy and what you would do, you would die for them. You'd run in a burning building. You'd do anything for them. You told your wife when you were dating her, I love you and I'd do anything for you. With this. But would you really? Are you willing to be healthy for them? Do you love your family? You do anything, you're willing to be healthy? You're willing to be virtuous? You're willing to be prayerful? And are you willing to pray out loud? And as you go through this whole long tail of this, very few people are actually willing to be healthy for their family, to run away from vice and turn to virtue. Most people will actually pray for their family if they're prayerful. But most of them also will not pray out loud. Like, honey, I would like to pray over this decision out loud.
Right.
Because it's awkward, because our ego gets in the way, because we don't want to feel awkward. So even if you don't go to the spiritual level, if you love your family so much, be the healthiest version of you you possibly can be, because that will allow you to be the best person in that family.
It's an ongoing endeavor with me, man, as age catches up, but I'm with you.
It's a journey, brother.
You.
It's not
It's
a
a journey.
destination.
It's a journey.
Yeah. So maybe there's my wisdom for you. If you love your family and you do anything, start by being healthy.
I agree.
And that's different for everybody. We have chronic things. We have histories.
Yeah.
Be as healthy as you can be.
You know, I'll take that and I'll own it. The other part, you know, when that I have learned is that you are not what you do, as in vocation. That's been the hardest thing for me, and I think I learned a little bit. But as you go, there, especially my generation, many times we have that problem, right? We look at it and we say, "Hey," and everybody asks you, "Hey, so what do you do for a living?"
First of all, they very rarely say for a living. They say, "What do you do?"
What do you do?
And I'm like, father, husband.
Yeah.
I go and all this stuff. They're like, "No, how do you make money?" And I'm like, "That's a different question."
Yeah, my oldest has a young lady that he thinks a whole lot of, and I met her parents not too long ago, and so before I guess we got there, somebody had asked the question, or they had asked the question of my son, "What does your dad do?" And he's like, I have no idea. Y'all seem to be doing well. What's it? I don't know. I was like, when?
Yeah.
I'm doing all right there. I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What wisdom do you have?
What do you have, man?
Yeah, I think I've spent a lot of time with that scrambling to scaling business model or businesses going through that transition. And I think it's really, you know, the things that got you from startup to today look different than what gets you from today to whatever that goal is, 5x, 4x, 3x, some kind of growth from here. It's a different set of skills, systems, and processes.
It is.
And so if you don't know somebody that's done that, or if you haven't done that yourself, like, there are resources out there, and like, look to those and reach out to them and seek them, because you can save a lot of time, a lot of headache, a lot of money in that process.
It is a total flip.
Yeah.
It is a total flip between being a builder and a maintainer, man. So, you know, that takes two different thought processes, and you have to be able. I always say that the total leader has to be transactional as well as transformational, and there's no way around that. That's a hard one to do, though. That takes a whole lot of skill, and to tell you the truth, it takes. For most people, it takes a lot of executive coaching to be able to do that
I'm
for
so
you.
glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I was going to say, and there's like a humility component too, where you have to go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to just die to self a little bit here.
Right.
And I'm going to learn like a student all over again, because I know that to get where I'm leading this organization, I cannot be who I was.
Right.
Right. And that changes how you show up, the way you lead meetings. Like, if you get very tactical, right. But also very strategic. So there's high level and low level applications.
There is. One of the things that I've always done, and a mentor gave me this, was, have you ever heard on the executive coaching path, the 4 meta questions? Have you heard about that? Where am I now? Where do I want to be? What's my obstacle, and how do I remove it? Right. And I can carry on a conversation for an hour and a half with an executive on those 4 questions.
Oh, yeah.
And many times at the end, the problem has really been not that you don't know, is that you don't like what you know, right? Yeah. And that what you're about to have to do is going to take some character, right? It's going to take some character to move things in the right direction.
Well, you also nailed, coaching is not that I have a program I'm going to give you. It's that I'm going to extract from you what you already know.
That's right.
And you're going to answer your questions.
It's Socratic to the end.
I'm the third party who's
right.
going to help you understand yourself.
That's right. Yep.
When we have these fears and narratives, right?
That's right.
And it's like, look, as your coach, I'll just take the other side of whatever bet you want to make.
Right.
You think it's going to be like this, this, and this.
Right.
I'll just take the other side of it. We'll work through it.
Well, and the other part of that is, and I've said this, and I know this sounds really cold, is, listen, I will listen to your story for the next hour and a half. It's time I've slotted for you. But it's not going to change where we're going to go at the end. So we can skip over the story if you want to, and we can get to the nuts and bolts. You know.
My first executive coach in 2008, I got done complaining about something. I've been going on for a while. He's staring at me, and he goes, "That's great. Don't ever talk to me about that again." Okay, thank you. And
Thank you.
We're moving on.
We're moving on.
And we never did. And we went way deep after that because I was done crying about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, thank you all for being here.
Brother.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Y'all rock. You really do. Man, I know you're going to do great. We'll pray for it. We'll make sure that you're doing what you need to do. And if you ever need anything from us, you know, we're here. Well, I am at least. Yeah. So
Thanks. Check us out. Undivided.life. That's the whole URL.
that's where we find you.
Undivided.life.
Undivided.life.
Yes, sir.
All right. Will do. And what else do you want anybody to know?
You know that there's a lot of resources that we're building constantly, so just stay in touch, right?
Mhm.
I'm a LinkedIn content creator, probably in the top 1%. That's a daily posting that challenges people. And then our actual site releases all sorts of things from the Beatidudes podcast, which is on every platform,
Okay.
to the online courses.
Yep.
And what I want people to know is if we've produced this much content and thought leadership in 3 months, imagine when we have a full-blown team and we're 3 years down the road. We would like to be a hub of challenging people to grow. So stick with us.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks.